You see that good ship, Jesus? Guess what? I'm glad it didn't capsize. You know why? On the inside, my people were on that side. Give me some water before I touch the outside. My brain is anti-clockwise. That's how I see them in the dark with my cat eyes. I left the church, so they said I backslide. They thought they got me on the day when I baptized.
Christ, painted black. Now this piece challenges us. It challenges us to embrace our individual selves and to make sure that we see ourselves reflected in everything that we do and everything that we believe in. Because only then can we truly be our best. And why not Christ painted black? Other artists of other races have painted pictures of their gods and whomsoever they worship to represent and reflect themselves. I see no reason why we should be immune to such a wonderful privilege.
Three of the most important Neteru in Kemet were Asar, Aset, and Heru.
Or to give them the more usual names, Osiris, Isis, and Horus. These three deities originally came from Kush.
These are very, very important triumvirate.
Their stories are as much mythology as they are history. And according to the story written on many papyri in Kemet, carved on several temples in Kemet, the spirit of Asar came and impregnated his virgin wife Aset. And then 9 months later, the virgin Aset gave birth to their son Heru.
Now, in the case of Isis or Set, she is the original Virgin Mother, and she is seen suckling Horus. He is shown as a child suckling his mother, and he's wearing the pharaonic headdress, making it clear that he was born a king.
So Heru was born, the son of a virgin. He was born with a specific purpose in life. That was to restore his father's kingdom, to do battle with his uncle Set and reclaim his father's throne.
And Heru eventually triumphs over Set.
At that moment, Heru was miraculously transformed into a falcon. He flew into heaven to meet with his father Asar, told Asar of his victory over Set. His father blessed him, and Heru then returned to Kemet as the legitimate heir to the throne. And when he ascended to the throne, the symbol of the Heru Badet, the winged sun disk, was a symbol that was carved above the entrance of every temple in Kemet to serve as a reminder of Heru fulfilling the reasons for which he was born. And at the moment Heru reclaimed his father's throne and was crowned the king of Kemet, his father Asar was resurrected from the dead and took his place on the throne of judgment.
And the moon has its lunar cycle and then disappears at the end of the lunar month. And then 3 days later is then reborn. And this is then the resurrection of Osiris after being dead for 3 days. So Osiris is then the god of death and resurrection.
We can actually still see Nubians wearing the feather of Ma'at, showing their connection to this moral order.
The people and the pharaohs tried to establish and maintain Ma'at. And they didn't have a word for evil, because that's, I think, what people think, good and evil, light and dark, do you know what I mean? But the opposite of Ma'at was Isfet, which was unbalanced.
Ma'at, the feather, would then be weighed against a person's heart. And if your heart is heavy and it tips against the feather, it shows that you have done things to have a heavy heart, meaning you're a guilty person.
The idea of the feather was a representation of the female aspect and also of air, but also of the lightness of being, the idea that your heart was not heavy. We still say it now. My heart is not heavy. My heart was light. I had a light heart, a clean soul.
They declare their innocence by reciting the 42 admonitions of Ma'at, some of which will sound very familiar to Jews and Christians. Those 42 admonitions were, I have not stolen. I have not committed adultery. I have not polluted myself. I have not polluted the land. I have not spoken ill of my neighbor. I have not spoken ill against God. I have not defrauded offerings. As a person's heart was weighed on the scale of Ma'at, as they recited these 42 declarations, if they were true to these declarations, then their heart would be as light as a feather. This is where the concept comes from. And so it means that they would be pronounced Ma'at Keru, true of voice.
The clean soul was the fundamental aspect. We see it represented in all the Cometian philosophies, which they had taken from their mother from the south.
So the idea then of Ma'at is she represents keeping the law, keeping truth, keeping justice, keeping righteousness, keeping reciprocity.
And what this basically meant is that we had to say that we didn't do these 42 cardinal sins. And once we lived a life that didn't contribute to those, we lived a good life, a righteous life.
This event was recorded in the Book of Judgment by Jehuti, and then in the next scene of this very important document, of which thousands and thousands were produced, because every person who died wanted to have this document to help them be able to recall these 42 admonitions. One of the very last panels shows Heru, the son of Asar, leading the vindicated soul of this person to his father. And it brings to mind the passage in the Bible, I think it's John. So Heru was the way, Heru was the truth, Heru was the light through which the soul of man was brought before the Lord of judgment. All of these ideas and concepts can be traced back to the Nile Valley, to Kemet, to Nubia, at least 1,000 years before the advent of Judaism.
You see that good ship, Jesus? Guess what? I'm glad it didn't capsize. You know why? On the inside, my people were on that side. Give me some water before I touch the outside. My brain is anti-clockwise. That's how I see them in the dark with my black eyes. I left the church, so they said I backslide. They thought they got me on the day when I baptized.